3 months ago, I gave birth to my third child, and even after 3 children, nobody prepared me for this part. By my third baby, I thought I knew everything there was to know. I knew the sleepless nights, the endless feeding, the deep and aching love. But knowing it did not make it easier, and nothing had prepared me for how it would feel, this time, to stand before the mirror and quietly search for a woman I used to recognize. My body carried the soft, heavy marks of having grown 3 children over the years. My arms felt rounder, my face looked fuller, and the clothes I once loved now sat untouched in a drawer I had quietly stopped opening. With each pregnancy, my body had changed a little more, and this time, holding my newborn close while 2 older children tugged at my sleeves, I honestly could not picture how I would ever feel comfortable in my own skin again. I remember holding my baby late one night, swaying her gently to sleep, and catching my reflection in the dark window, and a quiet voice inside me whispered something I felt ashamed to even think. I do not recognize this woman anymore. If you are a mother and you have looked at your changed body and felt that same quiet ache, then please stay with me, because I have stood exactly where you are standing right now, with a baby in my arms and a body I was still learning to understand. I am a Japanese mother. I have 3 children, a small and ordinary home, and a very full life. After my third was born, I did not feel well in my own body, and what I want to share with you today is simply the honest story of how I slowly, gently began to find my way back through small habits that became part of my everyday life. I want to share those habits with you, not as rules, not as promises, only as the quiet truth of how I slowly began to feel like myself again after becoming a mother for the 3rd time. When my youngest was born, everything shifted once more. My time stopped being my own. My sleep vanished completely. My meals became something I swallowed standing up at the kitchen counter, quickly, often cold, while holding a crying baby in one arm and watching my older 2 with the other eye. I poured everything I had into my family, the way a mother does. But in pouring out everything, I slowly forgot that I, too, was a person, that I, too, needed care. For the first weeks, I told myself this was simply the price of being a mother of 3. I was exhausted. Of course I was. Any mother of 3 is exhausted. My body was different, but of course it was. I had just carried and birthed another child. I accepted all of it quietly. And yet, somewhere deep inside, something did not feel right. I felt low in a way that sleep alone could not fix. I felt as though my energy had drained out of me and simply never came back. I slowly realized that I could not keep living this way. And here is the part I want you to hear clearly. It was never only about the weight or about how I looked. It was about how I felt. I was out of breath carrying my baby up a single flight of stairs. I felt short-tempered and tearful with the very people I loved the most. I wanted so badly to be a soft, patient, present mother to all 3 of my children, but my own exhaustion kept stepping in between us, again and again, like a wall I could not climb. So I began to pay attention. Not to diets, not to dramatic plans or punishing routines, especially not so soon after birth. I began to pay attention to the small, quiet things the older women around me did. My own mother, who had come to help me with a new baby. My grandmother. The neighbors who, even well into their 70s, walked with straight backs and calm, untroubled faces. I watched how they lived. I watched how they moved through their days. And I began, very slowly and very gently, to live just a little more like them. The first habit I returned to was the simplest one of all, walking. In my daily life, walking is not exercise. I never think of it that way. It is simply how the day moves. In those early months, it began with the smallest steps, a slow walk around the block with my baby wrapped against my chest, a short walk to the little grocery shop down the road instead of buying everything at once in a great heavy load, a walk to take my older children to school and the quiet way home again, a walk to the small temple at the end of our street, where I like to stop for just a moment of stillness before I turn back toward home. This is something many Japanese mothers quietly do, without ever once calling it a workout. We do not think, now I will go and burn energy. We simply move through the day on our own 2 feet, again and again, in small and gentle amounts that slowly, quietly add up. When I first began doing this on purpose, I did not expect very much from it. I was only trying to clear my tired mind and to feel the fresh air on my face after so many hours indoors. But over time, I noticed something I had not expected at all. I was sleeping a little more deeply in the short windows my baby allowed me. My legs felt steadier and stronger when I carried her. My breath came easier on the stairs that had once left me gasping. And then I noticed something even more surprising. The walking changed my mind long before it changed anything about my body. Pushing the stroller along the river in the soft morning light, I could feel the tight knot in my chest slowly begin to loosen. I could feel the heavy worries of motherhood shrink down into something smaller, something I could actually hold. Walking quietly became the time of day when I returned to myself. There is such a gentle rhythm to walking with a baby, her tiny weight rising and falling against me as she breathes, the way the movement soothes her into sleep, while my older children point at birds and stones along the path. I began to treasure these walks, not as something I had to force myself to do for my body, but as some of the softest and most peaceful moments in my entire day. And so, little by little, movement stopped being something I felt too tired and too heavy to do. It became something woven naturally and lovingly into the full life I was already living. But walking alone was not the thing that changed everything for me, because no matter how much I moved my body, there was something else happening, quietly, every single day at my own table. Something I had not yet begun to understand, and it had everything to do with a single, simple habit I had completely forgotten in the chaos of raising 3 children, a habit my grandmother gently reminded me of one evening while she held my sleeping baby in her arms. I will share it with you in just a moment. That evening, my grandmother was holding the baby while I rushed through my dinner standing at the counter, the way I always did. She watched me for a moment, and then she said something she used to say to me when I was a little girl. "Eat until you are content, not until you are full." As a child, I had heard those words 1,000 times, and never once truly listened. As an exhausted mother of 3, I had forgotten them completely. I ate quickly, between tasks, finishing whatever was on my plate, and often whatever my children left on theirs. I ate until I was heavy and uncomfortable, because I was tired, because I was stretched thin, and because food was sometimes the only small comfort in a very long day. One habit that changed everything for me was returning to my grandmother's quiet wisdom, eating until I was comfortably satisfied, and then simply, gently stopping. This sounds so small, almost too small to matter. But for me, it became one of the most powerful shifts of all. I slowly realized that I had been confusing fullness with comfort. I had been eating far past the point my body actually needed, simply out of habit and exhaustion. So I began to slow down and ask myself one gentle question near the end of a meal. Not, "Is my plate empty?" but, "Am I still hungry? Or am I already content?" In my daily life, this quietly changed the way I served food. I began to use smaller bowls and plates, the way they have always been used in many Japanese homes. A little rice, a little fish, a little vegetable, a small bowl of warm soup. Many small dishes rather than one heavy mountain of food. When the portions are gentle and varied, it becomes natural to feel satisfied without feeling weighed down. I want to be very honest with you here. I never counted anything. I never weighed my food or wrote down numbers, and I never followed a strict plan, especially not while caring for a newborn. I simply learned to listen to the quiet signal my body had been sending all along, that soft sense of, "I have had enough now," and to honor it instead of ignoring it. Over time, I noticed that I felt lighter after meals, not hungry, but no longer heavy. I had a little more energy in the afternoon, the time of day when I used to feel like I might fall asleep on my feet while the baby napped. And slowly, gently, without any dramatic effort, my body began to feel a little more like my own again. But there was something even more important than how much I ate. It was the way I ate. And this is the habit that, looking back, I believe mattered most of all. For years, ever since my first child, I had eaten like someone being chased, standing at the counter, one eye on the children, finishing my meal in 3 or 4 minutes so I could get back to the endless work of the household. I barely tasted my food, I barely noticed I had eaten it all. This is something many Japanese mothers quietly struggle with too, even though our food culture is built around care and attention. When you are exhausted and pulled in 10 directions, slowness feels like a luxury you simply cannot afford. So, I made one small promise to myself. I would sit down to eat, even for 10 minutes. Even with a baby in my arms and 2 children chattering beside me, I would sit, and I would set my chopsticks down between bites, and I would actually taste the food in front of me. In Japanese homes, there is a small word we say before eating: itadakimasu. It is a way of giving thanks for the food, for the hands that prepared it, for the lives that made it possible. I had been saying it out of habit my whole life, but now I began to truly mean it. I let that single word become a small pause, a breath, a moment to arrive at the table before I began. I slowly realized that when I ate slowly, I needed far less to feel satisfied. That quiet sense of enough that my grandmother spoke about arrived naturally when I gave my body the time to notice it. When I rushed, I missed the signal completely and ate long past it. In my daily life, slow eating became a small island of peace in a noisy house. My older children, watching me, began to slow down too. Our meals became conversations instead of races. My son would tell me about his day at school. My daughter would describe something she had drawn. Even with the baby fussing, the table became a warm place again, not just a station to refuel. Over time, I noticed that I was not only feeling better in my body, I was feeling better in my heart. The rushing that had defined my motherhood for years began to soften. I was no longer simply surviving each day. I was, in small and ordinary moments, actually living it. And yet, even with gentle movement, gentle eating, and gentle attention at the table, there was still one piece missing. The piece I had been neglecting more than any other since the day my baby was born. The very thing that, once I finally learned to protect it, changed everything about how my body recovered and how my heart felt each morning. I will tell you what it was. The thing I had been neglecting was sleep. I know how it sounds to a mother with a newborn. Sleep felt like the one thing completely out of my hands. My baby woke through the night, and there was nothing gentle or simple about that. But I slowly realized there was a difference between the sleep my baby took from me, which I could not control, and the sleep I quietly stole from myself, which I could. Because for years, ever since my first child, I had treated rest as the very last thing on my list. I stayed up long after everyone slept, folding laundry, preparing the next day's meals, finally enjoying a few precious minutes of silence. I wore my exhaustion almost like a badge, as if running on empty proved how much I loved my family. But I came to understand that those stolen, quiet hours were costing me more than they gave. The less I slept, the more I craved heavy, sweet food the next day. The less I slept, the less I wanted to move at all. The less I slept, the more easily I snapped at the very people I loved, and the worse I felt about myself afterward. I began to understand that rest was not the reward I gave myself after caring for everyone. Rest was the foundation that made it possible to care for them at all. So I began to protect whatever rest I could, the way I had always protected everyone else's needs but my own. When the baby slept, I tried, just sometimes, to rest too, instead of racing to finish every chore. I created small, calm routines at the end of the day. I dimmed the lights earlier. I put away the bright screen that used to keep my mind racing late into the night. I made a little warm tea and let the evening grow soft and quiet. In Japanese homes, there is a long and loving tradition of the evening bath. A warm soak at the end of the day is not seen as a luxury, but as part of how we close the day and let go of what it held. I returned to this small ritual whenever I could. Sinking into the warm water, I could feel my shoulders drop, my breath slow, and my body finally understand that the work was over and rest could begin. This is something many Japanese mothers quietly do. We let the warm water carry away the tension of the day, and when I climbed into bed afterward, I found I fell asleep a little more easily and woke a little less heavy. Over time, I noticed that protecting even small amounts of rest changed everything else. With more rest, I naturally wanted to move. With more rest, my hunger felt calm and normal instead of sharp and desperate. With more rest, I had the patience to eat slowly and the energy to walk with my children. All of my other small habits became easier, simply because I was no longer fighting the whole world on an empty heart. And this brings me to the last habit, the one that quietly holds all the others together. Because none of these gentle changes can survive in a life full of constant, grinding stress. And motherhood, as you well know, can be very full of it. In my daily life, stress used to live in my body like a clenched fist, tight shoulders, a tight jaw, a mind that never stopped running through the long list of everything I had not yet done, for the baby, for the older children, for the home. I carried that tension from the moment I woke until the moment I finally collapsed at night. I did not solve this with anything dramatic. I solved it, slowly, with very small daily routines that gave my mind somewhere soft to land. Every morning, before the house fully wakes, I make myself a quiet cup of tea, and I sit by the window for just a few minutes. Sometimes the baby is in my arms. I do not check my phone. I do not plan. I simply watch the light come into the garden and breathe. It is the smallest thing, but it sets a calm tone for the entire day. I keep a small routine of tidying just one corner of my home each day, because for me, a calm space creates a calm mind. I open the windows in the morning to let fresh air move through the rooms. I keep a single green plant where I can see it. These tiny acts of order and beauty are how I quietly remind myself that life is gentle, even when it is busy and loud and full of small hands. This is something many Japanese mothers quietly do. We find peace not in grand escapes, but in small, repeated rituals. A neatly wiped table, a folded cloth, a moment of stillness with a warm drink while the children play. These little routines become anchors that hold us steady through the beautiful storm of family life. Over time, I noticed that when my stress softened, my whole body responded. I stopped reaching for food just to comfort myself, because I no longer felt so frantic inside. I rested more deeply. I moved more freely. The clenched fist in my body slowly opened into something more like an open hand. And here is what I most want you to understand, as one mother to another. Not one of these habits was dramatic. Not one of them happened overnight. I did not transform in a week or a month. There was no single moment of triumph. There was only the slow, patient gathering of small, gentle choices, repeated day after day, season after season, in the middle of an ordinary life with 3 children. When my third child was born, I thought I had to choose between caring for my family and caring for myself. I slowly realized that this was never true. By walking with my children, by eating slowly at our shared table, by resting so I could give from a full heart, I was caring for them and for myself at the very same time. I cannot promise you anything. I am only a mother sharing her own story. Every body is different, and every life is different. What I can tell you is what these gentle habits gave back to me. They gave me back my energy. They gave me back my patience. They gave me back the quiet confidence of feeling at home in my own body again, even after 3 children. I am still tired on some days. I am still imperfect, but I no longer feel like a stranger when I pass that window at night. I feel like a woman who is slowly, gently caring for her own life, and finding that it makes her a softer and stronger mother than she ever experienced. If any part of my story spoke to your heart, I would be so glad to have you here. On this channel, I share the small, quiet habits of Japanese motherhood and family life, the gentle routines that help us care for our homes, our children, and ourselves. If that is the kind of calm you are looking for, please consider subscribing and walking this gentle path alongside me. I would love to keep sharing these small moments with you. Thank you for spending this quiet time with me today. Take care of yourself. You deserve it too.